You ever have one of those days that starts out like a dream, and by nightfall, you can't even recognize your own life? That was me. My name is Iggy Azalea, I'm 29 years old, and I live in Chicago. You know, that big, loud, beautiful city full of life and ambition. But 2 years ago, none of that mattered. My whole world was falling apart, and I could barely breathe. I wasn't planning on telling this story, not really, but sometimes getting it out is the only way to make peace with it. So here goes. Back then, I was planning my engagement party. I'd been with Ethan, my fiancé, for almost 4 years. I thought he was it, the one. He made me laugh, he was gentle, and honestly, I felt safe with him in a way I hadn't felt with anyone before. That day, I remember waking up with butterflies. I was surrounded by friends, family, twinkling lights in the backyard, flowers everywhere. It felt like something out of a movie. People kept telling me I was glowing, and I think they meant it. I felt it too. This was supposed to be the beginning of my forever. Then everything changed in a single moment. I stepped outside to catch my breath, to soak in the joy, maybe have a quiet moment to reflect. And that's when I saw it, right there in the backyard, Ethan and my younger sister Sophia. They were kissing. Not just a quick peck. No, it was deep, passionate, the kind of kiss that makes your knees buckle, and not in a good way. I froze. My body just locked up. For a second, I couldn't even register what I was seeing, and when they noticed me, they didn't even look guilty. They looked relieved, like the secret was finally out. Sophia pulled away from him and said my name like it meant something, like it could undo what I had just seen. I turned around and ran. I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay. I ended up in some random hotel, curled up on a bed, still in my engagement dress, with tears staining the pillow. My phone lit up every few minutes. Texts, calls, even from Sophia. Her message still haunts me. "I'm so sorry, Iggy. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. I love him." I couldn't even cry anymore. I just felt hollow, like the future I had planned had been yanked out from under me, leaving me in free fall. I stayed off the radar for 5 days. No calls, no social media, nothing. Then, finally, I knew I had to go back home and collect my things, face it all. What I walked into, it still makes my skin crawl. They were there, Ethan and Sophia, sitting side by side on the couch like they were on some kind of date. My family was gathered around them, acting like everything was perfectly normal. My mother rushed over, pulled me into a hug, said how worried they were. I just stood there, numb. Sophia looked up at me with tears in her eyes and said, "I'm sorry, Iggy. I never meant for this to happen. I can't help who I love." I wanted to scream, to shake her and ask if she realized what she'd done. Ethan opened his mouth to say something, but I cut him off. "You asked me to marry you," I said. "You made promises. You looked me in the eyes and told me you loved me. And now you're sitting here like I'm the one who doesn't belong." Nobody said a word. Not one person in my family stood up for me. They talked about fate, about how maybe this was meant to be, how I needed to let go and move on. My father said, "You can't change the past, Iggy. This is what they want." I looked around the room at the people who were supposed to protect me, to love me, and I felt like I was surrounded by strangers. "I'm done," I said, "with all of you." I left that day with a few bags and a broken heart. But somehow, even through the pain, there was a flicker of freedom, like I'd just slammed the door shut on something toxic and taken the first breath of clean air in years. Starting over isn't as glamorous as people make it sound. There's no triumphant music, no sunrise montage of you reinventing your life. It's just you, sitting alone in a quiet apartment, trying to figure out how to breathe without everything you once loved. That was me. After I walked away from Ethan, Sophia, and honestly, my entire family, I disappeared. I blocked everyone. I needed space. I needed to protect whatever little bit of myself I still had left. I started posting those "I'm doing fine" pictures on social media. You know the ones, smiling with a latte, laughing at brunch, a new haircut. It wasn't real, but it helped. It was a mask I wore so I could feel like I still had control. Chicago became my safe place again. I poured myself into work, made new friends, even tried a pottery class that I was terrible at. But it didn't matter. I was trying. Still, every now and then, the past would sneak in. A song, a smell, a picture of me and Sophia as kids. And it would all come flooding back. The pain, the confusion, the betrayal. It's funny how betrayal doesn't just break your heart, it breaks your sense of reality. I thought I was finally finding peace. It had been nearly 2 years, 2 full years of rebuilding, rewiring my brain not to expect a call from Ethan, not to wonder if Sophia ever thought about what she did. Then one Thursday evening, I got the call. I almost didn't answer. When I saw Mom flash on my screen, my whole body went cold. "Iggy," she said, her voice shaking, we need to talk. Please, can you come home?" I was quiet, frozen. "What's going on?" I asked, trying not to let emotions seep into my voice. "It's Sophia and Ethan," she said, her voice cracking. "They're in trouble, serious trouble." Now you'd think I'd hang up, that I'd laugh bitterly and walk away. But my heart, stupid thing, still cared. So I listened. Apparently, they'd started a business together, some kind of app. It flopped. Badly. They'd taken loans from people they shouldn't have, people who didn't take failure kindly. "How much do they owe?" I asked, almost regretting the words as they left my mouth. My mom hesitated. 80,000, she whispered. "They've tried everything. If we don't help them, I don't know what will happen." I sat there stunned. $80,000. And I could help. That was the worst part. I'd worked hard, saved even harder. I could wire that money tomorrow if I wanted to. But did I want to? "Mom," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "They abandoned me. You all did. When I needed family, you stood by and watched me fall apart." "I know," she said, "but they're family. Sophia needs you. She's scared, Iggy. They don't have anyone else." I wanted to scream, to say, "Good, let them suffer the way I did." But I didn't. Instead, I said, "I need time to think." And then I hung up. The days that followed felt like I was living in some strange fog. I couldn't focus. I couldn't eat. I couldn't even look in the mirror without wondering what kind of person I was becoming. Was I cruel if I didn't help? Weak if I did? One afternoon, I got a text, just one sentence, from my mom. "Please, Iggy, don't shut us out. We need you." I sat there with my phone in my hand, staring at those words like they were a riddle I couldn't solve. Part of me wanted to erase the message and go back to pretending they didn't exist. But another part, the part that remembered birthdays and snow days and late-night sister talks, couldn't stop caring. So I made a decision. I would go. Not to save them, not to hand over money, but to see, to understand. If they were really in danger, I had to know what I was dealing with. And that's how I found myself walking back into my childhood home for the first time in years. Walking into that house again felt like walking into a ghost story. Everything looked the same, the couch, the pictures on the wall, even the scent of lavender and old books. But it all felt off, like I was stepping into a version of my past that had been badly photoshopped. My parents looked relieved when they saw me. My mom rushed over like we were just picking up where we left off. I let her hug me, but I didn't hug back. "We're so glad you came, Iggy," she said softly, like saying my name gently would soften the years of silence. "Let's just talk," I said, sitting down and trying to keep my heart from pounding out of my chest. They explained it all. The failed app, the shady investors, the constant threats. I sat there and listened, my face still, my jaw tight. "If we don't help them," my mom said, her voice cracking, "they could lose everything. It's not just about money anymore. They're scared." I leaned back, folding my arms. And what about what I lost? Did anyone care when I was the one crying myself to sleep in a hotel room? Silence, heavy and sharp. My dad looked away. My mom blinked hard. "I get it," I continued. "You want me to be the bigger person, but I'm still bleeding from the knife they stuck in my back." And then came the part I didn't expect, the knock at the door. I knew before she opened it who it would be. I could feel it in my bones. It was them, Sophia and Ethan, standing there like ghosts of the people I used to love. Ethan looked thinner, worn. His eyes searched mine but didn't find anything familiar. Sophia looked broken, pale. Her voice was almost a whisper. "Iggy, can we please talk?" My body screamed no. My soul screamed hell no. But I stepped aside and let them in, because I needed to face this, even if it wrecked me. We sat in my parents' living room like some twisted family reunion. "We're not here to beg," Ethan started. We don't know what else to do." Sophia nodded, her eyes welling up. "They've threatened us, Iggy. I don't know how we let it get this bad, but we did." "You let it get this bad," I repeated, my voice colder than I meant it to be. "Just like you let yourself fall in love with my fiancé. Just like you let me walk out of this house and never looked back." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I know, I was wrong. We both were. But I'm not here to justify any of it. I'm scared." Ethan leaned forward. We're asking for help, not forgiveness. We know we don't deserve it. I wanted to say no. I had every right to. But instead I asked, how much do you need? They hesitated. 80,000, Ethan said quietly. It's the only way out. I let out a low whistle. That's not a small ask. That's not a favor. That's a lifeline. I'll pay you back, he said quickly. Every cent. You have my word. Your word didn't mean much before, I said. He dropped his eyes, and for a second I saw fear, not for the money, but for Sophia. Maybe he did love her. Maybe he was trying. Maybe none of this was as black and white as I wanted it to be. I'm not a bank, I said slowly, but I'm also not heartless. I'll think about it. That's all I can promise right now. Sophia reached out like she wanted to touch my hand, then thought better of it. Thank you, she whispered. They left soon after, and I just stood there in the quiet, listening to the silent scream all the things I didn't know how to say. The night after they left, I barely slept. I kept picturing their faces, the fear, the desperation, but also the history. Everything we'd been, everything we could never be again. It was like my mind couldn't decide if it was grieving or healing. By morning, I was still torn. $80,000 wasn't just money. It was a line in the sand, a symbol of everything they broke. If I gave them that, what would that say about me? That I was soft, forgiving, or just naive? I needed clarity, so I did what I always did when I didn't know what to do. I called my mom and asked her to meet for lunch. We sat at a little cafe near the lake, the kind with chipped mugs and mismatched chairs, the kind that felt real, solid. I needed that energy around me. She got there early, of course, always the fixer, always trying to hold us together with hope and guilt. Iggy, she said, her voice gentle, have you thought about what we talked about? I nodded slowly. I've thought about it every minute. She looked at me like she wanted to say more, but I held up my hand. I don't know if I can ever trust them again, Mom. They broke something in me. You know that, right? I do, she said quietly. But I also know you, and I know your heart. You want to do the right thing. You always have. That hit me harder than I expected, because I do want to do the right thing, but I also want to protect myself. I want to stop bleeding for people who'd watch me fall without blinking. I'm not saying I won't help, I told her, but it has to be on my terms. She nodded, hopeful now. Whatever you need. That night, I sent Sophia and Ethan a message. Meet me. One last time. We need to talk. They showed up looking like they hadn't slept either. I kept it simple. I'm willing to help, I said, locking eyes with both of them, but not with blind faith. They sat silently waiting. I'll give you the money, I said slowly, but only after you go to therapy. Real therapy. You both need to unpack why you made the choices you did. You need to understand what broke inside you that made betrayal feel okay. Sophia nodded, almost too quickly. We'll do it, I swear. And I'm not doing this because I owe you, I continued. I'm doing this because I need closure. And maybe because part of me still hopes you can become better people. Ethan's voice was shaky. We will, I promise. I wasn't sure I believed him. But for once I didn't need to, because the power wasn't in their hands anymore. It was in mine. So I laid it out. They'd start therapy within the week. I'd check in but keep my distance. The money would come only if they followed through consistently. They agreed to everything, and for the first time in 2 years, I felt in control. After they left, I sat on my couch for a long time, just breathing, just being. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I didn't fall apart. I had survived the worst day of my life, and now I was the one making choices. I was the one setting the rules. I was no longer a victim of what they did. I was the author of what came next. In the weeks that followed, I watched them actually show up. They sent screenshots of therapy appointments, even reflections from their sessions. It wasn't magic, it wasn't perfect, but it was real. And slowly that helped me heal too. I learned something powerful during all this, that healing isn't about forgetting or pretending it didn't hurt. It's about making peace with the fact that it did. It's about drawing a line and saying, you don't get to break me twice. Now, when I look out at the Chicago skyline, I don't just see a city. I see my rebirth, my strength, my story. I still don't know what'll happen with Sophia and Ethan. Maybe they'll grow. Maybe they'll crash again. But that's not my burden anymore. This is my life, my peace, my voice. And I'll never let anyone take that from me again.